Good afternoon or evening, everyone, depending on where you're calling from. I'm Natalia Abrams. You are all here for our last workshop of the year. We will be discussing the major overhaul of the student loan system, many things that will take place throughout next year, unpacking the decisions that were made in the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill Act, earlier this summer. So with that, we're just going to jump right into it. We have a lot to cover today, as always. Today's date is December 16th, 2025. We always say that because this is the information as we know of it today. I want to give a shout out to our funders who have helped keep our workshop programming going with the Annie E. Casey Foundation. We thank them for their support and always want to clarify this information is presented to you and designed by Student Debt Crisis and does not reflect the opinions of the foundation. So with that, let's go over some quick reminders. Please use the Q&A function to get your questions answered. We do it through the Q&A function on Zoom. We don't have time or capacity to do hand raises, but we will try to answer as many questions as we can. And if there is time, we'll try to answer some out loud that would pertain to the whole group. Any of the information shared today, it pertains to the current guidelines and rules. If you've been with us this year, there's been, it's been a forever changing landscape when it comes to student loans. So just keep in mind, this is what we know as of today. And a recording will be provided via email to anyone registered and attending this workshop today. So that's often one of our top questions. We know we go fast in some sections. You will all get a recording after this workshop so you can view this on your own time. So today we plan to cover what is going on with the SAVE program. I'll just cover that in just a second. We know that there were major changes last week to the SAVE program. Public service loan forgiveness. We're going to discuss a bit, as I mentioned earlier, those changes that came out of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. So the new lending limits, what's going to happen to repayment plan options, what actions do you need to take as a student loan borrower, what deadlines do you need to be aware of as a student loan borrower or as somebody that plans to borrow more in the future, and more. Another disclaimer, we are not financial counselors nor attorneys. We are advocates and experts, borrowers as well, here to help. So let's start with some of the federal updates. So the changes discussed today were included in, as we said, the OBBBA Act. This was the big bill that came out of the summer. While this bill was voted on and passed through Congress, it needs to be finalized through what's called NEGREG, or the negotiated rulemaking process. So we're still in that process. The timeline, and it's for something called the RISE, R-I-S-E, NEGREG. That is ongoing in terms of the meetings of the committee coming together. That just ended in November. We expect the proposed rule in early January. We will be sharing that with you all and encouraging you to make public comment. It won't be wildly different than what's discussed today than what was in the bill, but this is how it gets implemented. And then the final rule we expect around May, and implementation before or on July 1st. And you'll see when during Sabrina's section, that July 1st is a really big date in 2026 of a lot of the major overhaul will take effect. Rule changes to the public service loan forgiveness plan have been finalized. That had its own negotiated rule making process. However, they are being sued. So while we expect or have been told that the implementation for the new public service loan forgiveness rules, which we will go over, should take place July of 2026. The lawsuit or the ongoing litigation could delay that. The other thing is there's been heavy reductions in force at the Department of Education. They've laid off, a ton of people. They're operating at less than half staff at the Office of the Ombudsperson and the folks that really implement all of these student loan programs. So we expect that to delay and affect implementation for the major overhaul they're planning to do next year. This matters because there continues to be significant backlogs in applications, processing, loan discharges at the Department of Education. There was just an article that came out within the last 24 hours that more than 850,000 applications for repayment programs like IBR and IDR, income driven repayment programs, have been delayed. So, with that, we're going to go into the updates on the SAVE plan. This was breaking news last week, but if you're just joining us today, unfortunately, the Department of Education announced that last week the SAVE plan is coming to an end. What we do not know is the timeline for implementations and how this is going to happen. Like everything that goes on at the Department of Education, this is going to have its own negotiated rulemaking, yet another one. But there was a proposed settlement between the government and the associated parties that they will be ending the SAVE program. This is something, as advocates and people in this space, we have been very worried about. They did come to an agreement, and it's still pending court approval. But to the way we've been presenting it, we feel that this is a done deal. What we know, SAVE is going to go away for nearly 8 million folks who are currently enrolled in the SAVE program. Right now, if you are in SAVE, you are in a forbearance, meaning you have not had to make payments. You may have noticed that interest did start accruing August 1st, and no new folks can enroll in SAVE. And that's kind of been the way it's been for this year, that nobody new has been able to enroll in SAVE. The interest started August 1st. What we do not know is the timeline, the transition process. Will it be automatic? Will you need to take action? Meaning, are they just going to enroll you in a new IDR, income driven repayment program? Will you be placed in the standard, or do you have to do those actions yourself? Whether or not you'll be able to use the PSLF buyback for the time in SAVE also is up in the air. I will say that there are tens of thousands of buyback applications that have also not been processed. The other question we're getting, a lot of folks, we get this by email, we've got this on other workshops, is wasn't SAVE supposed to go away July 1st, 2028? So that was a part of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that SAVE was going to phase out along with Pay As You Earn, the PAYE program. But if you've been on our workshops this year, we've been saying that SAVE was tacked in multiple ways. It was going to go away one way or another by the courts or legislatively. However, now we think the timeline with SAVE is months, not years. So while it did state that July 1st, 2028 was the latest, if you're in SAVE, you're probably seeing that you don't have to recertify till sometime in 2027 or 28. This program, and this is what the Department of Education announced last week, is going to go away in the coming months, not in the coming years. So with this news, be careful with misinformation out there. A lot of the loan servicers, again, we hear this from you. So if you're hearing stuff out there, we always want to hear from you because we learned so much from you joining our workshops, sending us emails. But what we've heard is that some servicers are saying you need to consolidate in order to get your loans out of the SAVE program. That's not correct. If you're in the SAVE program, you have a direct loan. There is no need no requirement to consolidate to get out of the SAVE plan. We have the other thing you should do or know right now is know what repayment plan your loans are in. You can use the loan, if you're in SAVE especially, you can use the Department of Education tool, the loan simulator, or the EdCap tool, and I'm sure our team is sharing this in the comments right now, to get an estimate of what your monthly payments would be if you went off SAVE. Because right now on SAVE, you're on a forbearance, meaning you're not required to make a payment. If you get into a standard or any of the IDR programs, there's a good chance that you will have some type of minimum payment from having no payment at all. Whether you stay enrolled in SAVE or not is entirely up to you and a personal choice. There is no requirement to take action right now either, just because we have been notified that there was a settlement with the SAVE plan and it is ending. without that timeline, we don't know if it could be 1 month or 6 months. And for people not having to make a payment, that every month not having to make a payment for some people is worth it. Conversely, if you're looking to get credits for public service loan forgiveness or income driven repayment, you may want to consider switching because you do not get those credits right now in the SAVE plan. And the buyback remains uncertain. So, with that, I'm going to throw it to Sabrina, who's going to go over current repayment plans and options. And I believe it's Sabrina Ashley for this section.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we are going to get into some repayment options that are current. And if you've been on our workshops before, this section is going to be very much condensed. So we're going to kind of get through this so that we can go over the updates that are coming in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. So we're going to start with loan types. So we've broken this down for you all, federal loans. We will not be going over private loans today. So we have three different buckets of loans. There are direct loans, Perkins loans, and FELP loans. So FELP, or Federal Family Education Loan Program loans, are no longer given out, although some people still hold them. They are commercially held or held by the Department of Education. And as you can see, there are several different types of those loans. We have subsidized and unsubsidized Stafford. Then we have FELP Plus, FELP Consolidation, and FELP Parent Plus loans. Then we have Perkins loans there in the middle. Those are also no longer given out, but they were held by your institution, so your college or wherever you were going. And then we also have direct loans, and these are the newest type of loans. So we have several different types of these as well. We have subsidized and unsubsidized direct, and then we have direct graduate plus, direct parent plus, and direct consolidation loans. And we have highlighted here in red the direct graduate plus loans. And we did that because we have on July 1st, on July 1st, 2026, the direct graduate plus loans will no longer be issued. And we will be going over some of that stuff in more detail in the next section when we talk about the budget bill. So moving on to the next slide. Okay, we have broken down the servicers for you, and we have provided some private lenders as well, so you can determine what type of loan you have. So for federal student loans, you are going to have one of these. So Ed Financial on the left-hand side, Aid Vantage, CRI, Mohila, Nelnet, Heartland, AES, or Sloan Servicing. Then on the right-hand side, these are some common banks or companies that also hand out student loans, but they are private. So we have Discover, Sallie Mae, Navient. A lot of people go through Wells Fargo or College Ave, SoFi. And of course, the student loan system has a lot of confusing things here. So we do have Mohila on both sides here, federal and private. So in a few slides, we will go over how to determine if your Mohila held loans are federal or private. Okay, so current repayment plans that are available to folks are broken down here in this chart. We have the standard plan at the top. This is the plan that everyone is dropped into when they start repayment if you do not enroll in a different repayment plan. So this standard plan can also be called the level plan on some servicer websites. So if you log in and you see level, that also just means that you're in the standard plan. Then we have the fixed alternative plans on the left side here. And we have three different types. There's graduated repayment, extended repayment, and then extended graduated repayment. These are essentially variations of the standard plan, and we'll go over what these are in just a second. And then on the right-hand side, we do have income-driven repayment plans. And we have several different types. We have income contingent repayment, or ICR. Then we have income-based repayment or IBR, and there are two different versions there. There's a quote old and a new version. And then we have the pay plan or pay as you earn. And of course, we have the save plan. So, two notes here. Not everyone is going to be eligible for the pay plan. And then, of course, we do have save highlighted in red. Folks are no longer able to apply or enroll in the save plan. And we all just updated you on the save plans ending coming up. Okay, so we're going to go over the standard plan and the fixed alternative plans. So starting with the standard plan, this is a plan that is has fixed monthly payments and it's based off of your loan balance. So there's a 10-year standard plan for essentially unconsolidated loans, and then there's a 10 to 30-year standard plan, and that is for consolidated loans. Again, it's based off of your loan balance, so that's why the timeline differs there. And then there are more affordable options for borrowers who are struggling, and we'll get into those income-driven repayment plans in just a second. And in the standard plan, there is no loan forgiveness at the end of the road. You are going to pay off that balance in full. Um, a lot of people like the idea of the 10-year standard plan because they make a big dent in their debt or they don't want to deal with the interest, like seeing the interest balloon. So if that is something you're interested in, then the standard plan might be for you. But again, there are more affordable options. We also have the fixed alternative plans on the right-hand side here. And these are, again, variations of the standard plan. So starting off with the extended plan, this plan is going to have fixed payments, and the timeline here for repayment will be 25 years. And it is only available for folks with balances above $30,000. We then have the graduated plan, and on this plan, payments are going to increase every 2 years, and the timeline depends on your loan type and balance. And then we have the extended graduated plan, which is a combination of those two previous plans. So we have fixed payments that increase every 2 years, a 25-year repayment timeline, and then this plan is only available to folks with balances above $30,000. One note about eligibility for these plans is that all loans are eligible for these plans except for Perkins loans, but you are able to consolidate your Perkins loans to enroll in these plans if you wish to do that. And then again, with these plans, there is no loan forgiveness. At the end of the road, you are going to pay off the entire balance in full. Okay, so shifting into IDR plans or income-driven repayment plans. So these repayment plans have monthly payments that are calculated as a percentage of your discretionary income. And this is based on your income and family size, not your loan amount. So this is what makes it a lot more affordable than the standard plan. The monthly payments may be, again, more affordable than the standard plan, and that means that it can help you stay out of default or delinquency. And then these plans in particular are going to help folks with lower incomes, maybe folks who are unemployed or have decreased incomes. Then we have the loan forgiveness aspect, and this is possible after 20 or 25 years worth of payments. And it does depend on the plan, and we'll go over that in just a second. So, depending on the plan, you might need 240 credits or 300 credits, and that equates to 20 or 25 years. And when we talk about credits, we mean qualifying payments. So each qualifying payment counts as one credit. And then if your wages do decrease or if you become unemployed, you can recertify your lower income at any time, and this will secure a lower monthly payment for you for up to a year. So if you are going through a particularly hard time and you just can't make your payments, on your income-driven repayment plan, because your wage decreased, we do recommend that you recertify your income. And then every 11 months, you will need to recertify. And this is just sharing any updated info with your servicer. And this is going to pertain to your income and family size so that your monthly payments can be adjusted as needed for the next 12 months. And this can be done online. Okay, so we are going to be talking about IDR and IBR a lot today. So we have created this little umbrella graphic for you all because it is complicated to understand. So IDR, income driven repayment, is the umbrella term. So this is the name of the whole program. And all of these repayment plans, IBR, income-based repayment, pay as you earn, income contingent repayment, and then the saving on a valuable education plan. Those are all different plans that you can enroll in. They are types of income-driven repayment plans. Just a little explainer for folks. So, this screen here is a breakdown of the different plans. The save plan is not on here because it is not active right now. So we did only break down pay, new and old IBR, and then ICR. And you can see that each one of these plans has a different percentage of discretionary income that it's going to base your monthly payments off of, and then a different repayment timeline. And one important thing here is that because of the big, beautiful bill that passed in July of this year, borrowers can now apply for income-based repayment, even if you don't have a partial financial hardship, eligibility factor. So that is actually a benefit for a lot of folks. And then a note there is that you might not see it right now on your loan simulator or on studentaid.gov. Um, and of course, we have processing delays, so you might have to wait a while for your application to be processed, but they are updating that this month. Okay, so this is brand new to our deck. So they did do a massive update on studentaid.gov. So we are going to go through some new screenshots here and see what that looks like. So, just a reminder for folks, studentaid.gov is where you're going to go to identify your current repayment plan. It's where you're going to go to answer any of your questions for your federal student loans. And it's really important that you type the URL directly into the browser. So www.studentaid.gov. Unfortunately, there are scams out there. So if you just Google it, you might go to a very unfriendly website where they might ask you for fees. All of this information is free. If you are having trouble logging in or resetting your password, you can try calling this number on the screen, or you can head to this website on the screen as well. And we will be sending this as a recording and these resources. So you will get these if you need those. Okay, so let's get into some of these screenshots. So we're going to go over how to find your loan information. So when you log into your account, your dashboard now is going to be this screen here. So you will have this section that says My Loans instead of My Aid. It used to be My Aid, now it's My Loans. And it does look different. It doesn't have the circles that used to tell you your loan balance and your grant balance. It just gives you your total balance, your interest rate, your repayment plan, and your recertification date, all on the front page. So that aspect is a little helpful for folks. You can just find out your current repayment plan right there on your screen. If you want to dig into your loans, then you are going to hit that View My Loans button that we have highlighted there. And that's going to bring you to this next screenshot. This is just again another overview page. It does tell you your upcoming payment. And then also you can again link or click out to your servicer website there. And then you're going to scroll down a little bit until you see a repayment plan section. So before we get there, actually, this bottom half of this screenshot is going to tell you any PSLF payment progress. So that is a new update as well. You don't have to dig for that as much as you did previously. Okay, so once you scroll down past that, you're going to come to this screenshot on the left-hand side. Um, so there are some people who might have their plans in or their loans in different repayment plans. So they might be looking at two different sections like we've highlighted here, or your loans might show up under this other category that's down below on this screenshot if you had consolidated your loans and they no longer, quote, exist in that form anymore. So this top portion, though, of the left screenshot is this person's loans under the Saving on a Valuable Education plan. And you can see that it breaks down into all of the different individual loans. So we have all the individual loan balances, the interest rates, the status. It's a little hard to see here, but we do have a forbearance status because they're in the save plan. And then we do have next to each loan a repayment progress bar. So that could also be beneficial to some folks. Okay, so then on this left-hand screen, we have this pink arrow and it is highlighting a button that says View Repayment Plan. So if you click onto that button, it's going to bring you to this right-hand screenshot. And this is going to break down your um, essentially like what your payment looks like on each of your repayment plans. So this top portion here, Saving on a Valuable Education Plan, is going to tell you what your monthly payment is, your loan balance, your plan type. So this is where you can see that the SAVE plan is a type of income-driven repayment plan. And then it gives you some more information as well on the right-hand side about your recertification information. So those are the main updates there. If you go back to that first screenshot where we were looking on the different repayment plans, and you instead click on View Loan next to one of your loans, you will come to this screenshot on the right-hand side. And this is where you're going to find a little bit more individual information about your loan instead of your repayment plan. So you can see that this current loan balance is $5,000 and some change. And then it also breaks down the repayment plan, the loan servicer, the current loan information. So your balance, your principal balance, your outstanding interest, your loan history, um, the status history. And this can be beneficial for folks if they're unsure of time spent in forbearance or default, or maybe a deferment. So definitely click around here, and this might help answer some of your questions on what is going on with your loans. Okay, so how to identify monthly payments on different plans. You can use the loan simulator. It is easy to find on studentaid.gov. The con here is that this simulator might show inaccurate results for plan eligibility and monthly payment amounts. It does come in handy when you don't have time to call your servicer. The calculations for the standard plan through the loan simulator should be pretty accurate. If you want to call your servicer, this could provide you with more accurate information regarding your plan eligibility and monthly payment amount. And then the con here is the long wait times. You should ask, what repayment plans am I eligible for, and what are the estimated monthly payments? And then if you're working towards PSLF, Public Service Loan Forgiveness, you want to be sure to specify that you want to maintain that eligibility for PSLF. So they should be giving you an income-driven repayment plan option or the 10-year standard plan. You can also use the cap tool that we dropped in the chat earlier. This is good to play around with for what your payments would look like, but it's not going to confirm what plans you're eligible for. Okay, on this next slide, how to apply for an IDR plan. You can find the application online if you want to apply online or via paper. We do recommend online, the online application. And then this is important. If you did submit an application requesting the lowest monthly payment or applied for the SAVE plan, your application will be denied. Additionally, if you applied before March 2025 and your application is still pending, you should consider submitting another application. Applications that do the IRS integration, if you opt into that, we have heard that they are being processed much faster than paper forms or income documentation, so keep that in mind as well. And then the most common question that we get here is, how long does it take to process? And honestly, it could take anywhere from a few days to a few months. Um, to process the application. While your application is being processed, you should be placed into a processing forbearance for the first 60 days. Um, this is where you should not be billed while your application is processing. And if you're not placed into this processing forbearance, you can call your servicer and demand to be placed into one. Okay, and then the last thing here is federal loan consolidation. So what is consolidation? This is converting older loans like Fell, Perkins, into a direct loan. And it's also about combining multiple loans into a single loan. So it really is depending on what you're trying to do with your loans. So essentially, either way, you're creating a new loan and you're going to receive a new payoff date. And consolidations can take 30 to 60 days or even more. At this time, we don't recommend anyone consolidating their loans on or after July 1st, 2026, and we will get into why that is in a second. And then things to consider here, you can consolidate a single loan like a Parent Plus loan, a FEL loan, a FEL consolidation loan, or a Perkins loan. Those can all be consolidated into a direct consolidation loan. Then if you are consolidating an existing direct consolidation loan, you must have at least one other loan that you are combining it with. And then you can find the application on studentaid.gov. And then we do want to note here that due to current regulations, if you do consolidate right now, you may erase some or all of your repayment history. And that includes any PSLF progress by creating this new loan. And that might extend your payoff date and reset your IDR to zero. You could also see a weighted average of your PSLF credits. So just be aware of that. And then also you must submit employer certification forms before submitting a consolidation application for to get any PSLF credits that you might be missing out on. So with that, I will pass it off to Sabrina.
Thanks, Sabrina Ashley, and thank you folks for your patience in the Q&A as we try and answer your questions. We're trying to get to as many as we can, but anything that's too specific is a little bit tough to navigate today. But with that, I know Sabrina Ashley did a really great job covering the current system and how things stand, and now we're going to jump into the timeline of the upcoming changes we expect to see. So, looking at this early overhaul timeline of all of the changes, as Natalia mentioned at the top of the hour, July 4th, 2025 was when President Trump signed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act into law. We then saw in October and November of this year the rise negreg or regulatory changes meetings to discuss the implementation of these student loan changes. We anticipate that in early 2026, the final rule on these changes and the implementation will be published. With that information, we'll be able to tell you the exact specifics of what is going to happen. As Natalia said earlier, this is going over the language that was in the bill, but it will be finalized in early 2026. And then July 1st, 2026, which is going to be the key date of tonight, is when the implementation of these new rules are set to begin. So you're going to hear me say that a lot over the next few minutes. So please bear with me and keep that date fresh in your mind. And then as we look down the road, July 1st, 2027, if you are someone who has been in default in the past, loan rehabilitation, which is a pathway out of default, is going to be expanded and available twice to folks. And there are also going to be changes to deferment and forbearance options for anyone with new loans beginning in 2027. And then by July 1st, 2028, we anticipate IBR pay and save will be phased out, with which again we mentioned that save will most likely be phased out prior to that date. All right, so what are the specific changes that we can expect to see? Let's jump right into that. The major upcoming changes are going to be some new student loan lending limits, new repayment plans that are coming. Some existing repayment plans are going to be phased out. There's going to be repayment plan eligibility changes. Action may be needed for Parent Plus loan holders, and economic hardship deferments are going away for some borrowers. So we're going to break this down for you and try and cover it all right now. So, starting with the loan lending limits, there are going to be lending caps for federal student loans. We anticipate this beginning on July 1st, 2026. So, what does that mean? So, for graduate students seeking a graduate degree, it's going to be $20,500 a year with a total lifetime limit of $100,000. If you are seeking a professional degree, that is going to be a $50,000 a year limit with a 200,000 total lifetime limit. If you're taking out Parent Plus loans, the limit is going to be $20,000 a year per dependent with a maximum of $65,000 per dependent. Now, you may have seen this in the news a few weeks ago. I know a lot of folks were talking about it, where some degrees were being designated, no longer designated as professional degrees. What does that mean? That essentially is telling you that the amount of federal student loans that you'll be able to take out is going to be more limited. So, one example is a nursing degree. They said that that no longer qualifies as a professional degree, so you would not be able to take out $200,000 of a total lifetime limit. You would be only able to take out $100,000 for a total lifetime limit. Now, another piece of this puzzle is that the new aggregate lifetime loan limit will be $257,500 for all borrowers, regardless of any amounts repaid or forgiven. This does not count for Parent Plus loans. So if you take out, let's say, $250,000 and you pay more than half of it, and then you want to continue on with your education, you won't be able to do so beyond this amount of 257,500, even if you've paid some off. That is the new lifetime limit for everyone, except for the Parent Plus loans. And existing borrowers enrolled full-time in a program by June 30th, 2026, that also took out a direct loan for that program may be exempt from new borrowing caps for up to 3 years. So again, these are really big changes. We will continue to share out this information, but lending loan limits are coming next year. All right. Now we're going to break down the repayment plan options for borrowers that only have loans issued pre-July 1st, 2026. So if you do not plan on taking out any loans after that, on or after that date of July 1st, 2026, this is what is going to be available to you. You're going to have access to the standard plan. You will continue to have access to the alternative plans, the graduated, extended, and extended graduated repayment plans, and you will continue to have access to income-driven repayment plans like ICR, IBR, pay as you earn. The SAVE plan, we have this on here. Folks who are enrolled in the plan will continue to have access to it until it's phased away. And then this WRAP plan is going to be the new plan next year, and we're going to get into that in just a few minutes here. Now, on July 1st, 2026 is when this WRAP plan is also going to become available to existing and future direct loans. All loans will be able to access this with the exception of Parent Plus loans and any Parent Plus loans that have been consolidated. So again, this is a blow to Parent Plus loans, but we will discuss options that are available for folks in just a few minutes here. Now, this is a very stark difference when we're looking at loans pre-July 1st, 2026. Now, looking at this chart here, this is for anyone with any loans taken out on or after July 1st, 2026. You will only have two options. There will be a new version of the standard plan, and the only other plan is WRAP, the repayment assistance plan. So these two options, if you have direct loans right now, but you take on even one loan or consolidate your loans on or after July 1st, 2026, you will lose access to the current repayment plan options and only have access to the new standard plan or the WRAP plan. This is huge. Right now, folks have multiple options, but again, if you take any action such as taking on a new loan or consolidating on or after that July 1st date, you are going to have limited repayment options. So please keep that in mind. All right, so what does the new standard plan mean? Again, the new standard plan is only available to folks with loans on or after July 1st, 2026. So the repayment term is going to be based on your balance. So if you have a balance between 0 and 24,999, it's going to be 10 years. If you have between 25,000 and 50,000, it's going to be 15 years. Between 50,000 and 100,000 is 20 years, and anything over 100,000 is going to be a 25-year timeline. The new standard plan, unfortunately, does not qualify for public service loan forgiveness. That is really frustrating for folks, and we're going to see why as we discuss Parent Plus loans in just a minute here. Parent Plus loans that are issued or consolidated on or after July 1st, 2026 will only have access to this new standard plan. There will be no IDR, no income-driven repayment options for Parent Plus loans, which we know is going to be a huge concern for many folks out there. We hear from folks all the time telling us that ICR and IBR are unaffordable options. However, this new standard plan is going to be devastating for folks because it doesn't matter what your income is, what your family size is. This is going to be your monthly payment if you take on a loan or consolidate beginning on or after July 1st, 2026. So keep that in mind. All right. The question of the hour here is about the WRAP plan. So the repayment assistance plan is slated to begin on July 1st, 2026. This is different than the current repayment plans because it has a longer timeline. This is going to be based on 30 years, essentially a mortgage, and is requiring 360 IDR credits, which is the equivalent of the 30 years. Now, who qualifies for WRAP? All student loan borrowers with direct loans, whether you're pre or post July 1st, 2026, have access to WRAP, with the exception of Parent Plus loans. Parent Plus loans, whether or not it's pre or post July 1st, does not have access to WRAP. Some other things to note about the WRAP plan is that $0 payments will no longer exist on this plan. You will have a minimum of $10 payments, even if you're unemployed. The WRAP plan will also waive any interest that's not covered by the borrower's monthly payment, similar to what SAVE did, and will reduce borrower's principal by up to $50 if the payment does not do so. This plan is going to be based on 1 to 10% of adjusted gross income, which is less generous than how it's currently being calculated for income-driven repayment plans. Currently, IDR plans are based on discretionary income, which is more generous than AGI, which is going to be the calculation for RAP. If we take a look here, we see that it's less generous than SAVE and more expensive than other IDR plans for lower income folks. But if we look at the chart here, it's going to be slightly different for folks. On the Maybe if you're in the middle income range, it could be something that is affordable. We're looking at $40,000 to $50,000. It looks at 4% of your income. That's going to be a monthly payment of $133 to $166. That's before subtracting $50 per dependent. However, if we look a little bit ahead at, let's say, $80,000 to $90,000, that's going to look at 8% of income, and that payment is going to be $533 to $600. If we're looking at greater than 100,000, it's looking at 10%, and that's going to be anywhere from $833 upwards. So we recommend that you go through the tools in the chat. There's the EdCap tool specifically that's actually doing the calculation of RAP. So if you want to know what your monthly payment is going to be on the RAP plan, I recommend that you go through that tool to get a calculation of what that will be. And then another really important piece here is that as we're still trying to digest these pieces and as we're waiting for the final rule in early 2026, there is right now no guarantee that as someone with loans pre-July 1st, 2026, that once you enroll in the RAP plan, you'll be able to switch to the income-based repayment plan. You should be able to switch from RAP to the standard plan, but we're still working on getting more information from our lawyer friends and from policy folks as soon as we get more information on the final rule language. Now, we wanted to put this in a real life scenario here for you to understand what this could look like. So if we're looking at Jack, Jack has $40,000 in loans, and they're all from before July 1st, 2026, and he has an income of about $50,000 a year. These are his current options, and we're going to get into his future options once he takes action post July 1st, 2026. But for right now, these would be Jack's options. On the standard plan, he would pay $452 on a 10-year timeline. If he enrolls in an alternative fixed plan, on the extended plan, it would be $267 over 25 years. The graduated plan would start off at $260 and end at $779 over 10 years. And if he did the extended graduated plan, it would be starting off at $213 and end at $392 over a 25-year timeline. Now, if we look at pay, he would pay $221 a month over 20 years. For ICR, he would pay $346 a month over 25 years. If he's in the newer version of IBR or the July 2014 version, he would pay $221 a month over 20 years. And if he was enrolled in the RAP plan, he would be paying $166 over a 30-year timeline. Now, on the next slide here, we have some alternative scenarios for Jack. So the first scenario here being Jack has $40,000 in loans, same situation from before July 1st, 2026, but he decides to consolidate all of his loans together. Once he does that, these are going to be his options moving forward. He will have access to the new standard plan, which will place him at about $300 to $400 a month over 15 years. And on the RAP plan, it will continue to be 166 over 30 years. Now, in the second scenario, we're looking at Jack taking out more loans, which would bring his total loan balance to $70,000. And let's say his income increased to $85,000. With that scenario of a higher loan balance or new loans and a higher income, Jack would be paying about $500 to $600 on the new standard plan over 20 years. And on RAP, his payment skyrockets to $567. So just keep that in mind. Different plans mean different situations and monthly payments for everyone. We do encourage you to go through the different tools we've shared so that you can get a sense of what your monthly payment is going to look like. And again, as a recap, borrowers with only loans from before July 1st, 2026, that cutoff date will be grandfathered into the old or the current repayment system. You will have access to the income contingent repayment plan and the pay-as-you-earn plan until July 1st, 2028 at the latest, or whenever it is that they decide to phase out those plans. Parent Plus loans, we do recommend that if you have unconsolidated Parent Plus loans, that you consolidate those loans sooner rather than later. It takes 30 to 60 days, as Sabrina Ashley said, or more to consolidate loans, and the loan has to be issued before July 1st, 2026 in order for you to retain or keep access to the existing income-driven repayment plans. For borrowers that take on any loans on or after July 1st, 2026, they will only have access to the new standard plan and the WRAP plan. There are going to be new lending limits implemented, and Parent Plus loans. Parent Plus holders will only be eligible for the new standard repayment plan, not WRAP, meaning there will be no income-driven repayment options. All right. I know that was a lot of information, but I'm also seeing a lot of questions in the Q&A about PSLF. So with that, I'm going to toss it back to Natalia to cover public service loan forgiveness.
Thank you, Sabrina. And yes, as Sabrina said, we know this is a lot. We will be doing multiple workshops every month next year to help everyone untangle this information. And also as we untangle the updates that come out of all of the negotiated rulemaking sessions. So let's get into public service loan forgiveness. So as you may know, this program started October 1st, 2007. So any and all public service work, while in a direct loan in the right loan type, would count towards the public service loan forgiveness program. After 120 payments or 10 years, you have completed the program. You do need to wait for time for the application to be approved if you plan to exit your repayment program. But after that, your loans are forgiven. I will say that payments are cumulative, not consecutive. We know people go in and out of the program, but you have to hit that 120. It's an all or nothing thing. So partial credit, we get this question all the time, of like 8 years, even 9 years, unfortunately does not count. It has to be 10 years. So one of the best ways to utilize this program is being in an income driven or IDR program. That's IBR, pay as you earn, ICR, plus the public service loan forgiveness, so you can get the maximum benefit. Pay as little as possible over those 10 years and receive as much forgiveness as possible at the end. So how do you know if you qualify for the public service loan forgiveness program? You need to have a direct loan. All my folks in the SAVE program, you have a direct loan. Sabrina Ashley walked you through the new studentaid.gov. It can be difficult to see if you're in the program or not, but if you've had a loan issued after 2010, you have a direct loan as well. Does your employer qualify? Do you work for and we'll go over kind of who qualifies and doesn't, but a 501c3 nonprofit? Do you work for federal, state government levels? That all qualifies. Are you in the right qualifying repayment program? So that means, are you in the 10-year standard that does qualify, or in these income-driven repayment plans? And then make sure to document your employment using the PSLF form. Once you reach the 120 credits, go through that help tool again and click the button that says, I have reached 120 credits. So I briefly covered this, but let's go over it again. What qualifies for PSLF? Direct, subsidized, and unsubsidized loans, direct grad plus, direct parent plus, if the parent is working in a nonprofit or qualifying job, not their child, but the parent, or direct consolidated loans. All count. The repayment plans that count: 10-year standard plan, ICR, income contingent repayment, pay as you earn, income-based repayment, and coming up, the WRAP plan or the repayment assistance plan will count towards public service loan forgiveness. For employers, all levels of government, that's state, local, federal, 501c3 nonprofits, and other critical public services, firefighters, police officers, nurses at nonprofit hospitals, all of that counts. What does not qualify is those older FFELP loans, those loans issued prior to 2010, if you have not consolidated. You can always consolidate those loans and then they will count. The same with Perkins loans. Unfortunately, private loans never count, and time in delinquency and default does not count either. You can make your loan eligible if you're able to take it out of default to then start working towards PSLF. In terms of repayment plans, all of those fixed alternatives, so that graduated repayment, extended graduated repayment, time on those plans do not count for public service loan forgiveness. Any standard plan that's longer than 10 years, so that if you've consolidated and now have a 30-year standard, that does not count. The new standard that's coming up will not count. That's what we're hearing through these negotiated rulemakings. Those will be for people that take out loans after July 1st of 2026. Most time, deferments and forbearances, including in-school forbearance, does not count. In terms of employers, and unfortunately, government contractors do not count. So for some, depending on your state, if you are, a part-time professor or contracted to do work for a government or a C3, that doesn't count. The 1099 folks do not count. You need to be W-2. Working at a C4 nonprofit, like political groups, that does not count. And labor unions, this is if you work at the labor union, you can be a member of a labor union, that won't impact you. But if you work at the labor union, then that does not count. So there's also, we get a lot of questions on this, the PSLF buyback program. So what is it? This is a program that was implemented with the last administration that you can buy back certain months of your payment history to make them qualifying payments for public service loan forgiveness. Now, it's unclear if folks in the SAVE program will count towards the buyback. Today, it should count. We don't know how the SAVE, unraveling rollout, doesn't fully make sense, but how that will come down. So we're going to be really watching this space and updating you as soon as we get updates on whether they make a decision on that. I'd say right now, apply if you think that this qualifies you, but we need to be clear that this is a program that's only available if you've already been in there for 120 months. So you're buying the past, not the future. So you can specifically buy back months that don't count as qualifying payments because you were ineligible due to deferment or forbearance status. Time spent in school forbearance does not count. So those 6 months that you get of, that while you're in school and you're not paying your loans, that time doesn't count even if you're working in the PSLF qualifying job. So how do you benefit this whole buying the past, not the future? It's only available when you have an estimated of 120 qualifying payments or qualifying employment months. You're buying back time that was in forbearance or deferment that you've done those 120 months, but your calculator is only showing 110. You realize that there was a couple of months you were in and out of forbearance. You can buy that time back. Again, for folks in SAVE, we urge you to try, but there's no guarantee. We're still unclear if that time counts. You must submit the buyback request and make at least one extra payment of at least as much as what you would have owed under the income-driven repayment plan you were on to buy back. So it's not that you wouldn't have to necessarily spend the whole amount on the standard, but whatever. Some people in the past forgot to re-enroll or recertify for an income-driven repayment plan. So then they went through the process of re-enrolling. They were on a processing forbearance for a few months. There was maybe a time spent in deferment because they didn't realize they weren't on a plan. It's that kind of thing that you can try to buy back those months, and they would place you on the minimum payment of what you would have paid on an IDR plan. Like everything, there's a huge backlog of more than 70,000 buyback applications. This is why at least we are unclear if that time was saved will count, and there's a concern that it could be taken away with the upcoming unraveling of the SAVE program. Here's the timeline of what's going on with PSLF. So many people, I'm sure you've heard, there was changes proposed by the administration to change the public service loan forgiveness program. There was a negotiated rulemaking period that happened in June and July. We saw a preliminary rule in August, and the final rule was released in October of this year, and it was quickly sued for being a terrible rule that is going to could take PSLF from a lot of people. Nothing has changed yet. There is an expectation that this could take an impact in July of 2026, as well as all these other major overhauls, but it could be delayed because of this lawsuit. So what is this new PSLF rule? So the Department of Ed finalized a rule to change the employer's future eligibility starting in July 2026, pending this lawsuit and other changes. The Department of Ed is going to work to disqualifying groups and as my colleagues say, their language, not ours, violating federal immigration law, facilitating illegal immigration, violating state law, or providing gender affirming care for transgender youth. Employers are at risk of being impacted by these rules, including gender affirming care providers like hospitals, nonprofits supporting immigrants, universities, state and local governments, and sanctuary cities and states. The impact. If you are, for example, an administrative assistant at a hospital that provides this care for people, you can be impacted. So it's not dependent on your job, it's dependent on your employer. If you work for a state or city that is also considered, breaking any of these laws by the current administration, they could take away your PSLF eligibilities. So what happens once this rule goes into effect, which again will be July 1st, 2026, pending litigation delays? If deemed ineligible, the employer remains ineligible for 10 years unless the employer complies with a corrective action plan between the employer and the Department of Education. No payments made by a borrower after this time will count towards PSLF following any months following the determination that the employer is deemed ineligible. Your past credits will remain intact. That's something very important to note. So if you change jobs, if your employer does this corrective action plan, then you would be able to resume getting credit. The Department of Ed would be required to inform you as an employee that your employer has lost their status. So you should be notified. Unfortunately, you as the borrower cannot appeal the decision once it's been determined. There are currently 3 ongoing lawsuits regarding this rule being deeply unconstitutional. So this is another space that we will be heavily watching. And with that, I'm going to give it back to Sabrina.
Awesome. Thanks, Natalia. All right, we're almost at the end here, folks. Thanks for hanging on with us. So, what if I can't afford my payments? So, if you've checked your income-driven repayment plan eligibility and your options, but you still can't meet the minimum monthly payment, you may consider applying for a forbearance or a deferment as a temporary emergency option. So, what are those options? The forbearance allows you to temporarily stop making monthly payments or temporarily make smaller payments. It's a discretionary or a hardship forbearance. So, usually there is no progress being made towards loan forgiveness during this time or towards loan payoff, and interest does accrue while you're in a forbearance. So you may choose to pay the interest during a forbearance, but for most folks, it is again due to hardship that they're in this forbearance. So you do not need to make any additional payments. Now, if you are in a deferment, that will also allow you to temporarily stop making payments. Interest does accrue on some loan types, not all, but different from a forbearance, a deferment actually has very specific eligibility requirements and forms that you need to fill out. So, if you are undergoing cancer treatment, economic hardship, if you're in a graduate fellowship, in military service and post-active duty, student deferment, rehabilitation training, or unemployment, you can request a deferment for those specific scenarios. So again, these are temporary emergency options that are available so that you do not fall into default. So consider this if you are unable to meet your monthly payments and don't want to be in default. All right, so what happens if I don't make my payments? One day, being past due on your loans, your payment is considered delinquent. The loan will remain delinquent until the missed payments are made up, or if you are delinquent or behind on payments, you can call your servicer and you can request a deferment or a forbearance to be granted or applied retroactively for the period in which you were delinquent so that your loan is back into good standing. Now, if you go 90 days past due, that delinquency is going to be reported to on your credit. So the national credit agencies are going to have a notice of your delinquency, and you may see your credit score drop significantly. We have been hearing from folks who are seeing that. So if you see your credit score drop, that is why you may be behind on payments. Now, if you continue to be past due 270 days, which amounts to about 9 months, that is when your student loan is officially in default. The consequences of default include tax refunds being withheld or seized, wage garnishment, so they would work with your employer to take that out of your paycheck. You would then become ineligible for federal assistance. So there are a lot of negative consequences that come with default. Um, but don't be alarmed. If you are in default, there are ways to get out of it. There are tools like loan rehabilitation or loan consolidation to get your loans back into good standing. Now, if you have a federal Perkins loan, your loan can actually be placed into default after 1 day of missed payments. So you would need to work with your servicer to make sure that you get your loans out of default as soon as possible. All right, so how to know if you are in default. If you log into studentaid.gov and you look at your dashboard and you see this red banner at the top and it says you have X number of loans in default, that is a very clear sign that your loans are in default. Now, if for some reason you can't log into studentaid.gov, you don't know where to find that information, you can contact the default resolution group. You can find that information at studentaid.gov, where you can also find information about loan rehabilitation, loan consolidation, and all the ways to get your loans out of default. All right. So, looking at additional forms of loan forgiveness, cancellation, and discharge, I did see a couple of questions about total and permanent disability discharge, which this provides full forgiveness on your federal student loans if you're totally and permanently disabled. Borrowers must provide documentation from either the Veterans Affairs, Social Security Administration, or get sign off from a medical professional. There is no longer a 3-year income monitoring period for TPD. Borrowers qualify if they have also qualify if they have a mental or health condition that is expected or has lasted 5 years and is preventing them from getting substantially gainful employment. That is one option. In addition to that, there are a few others, which include borrower defense to repayment. That specifically is for institutions and schools that have defrauded or engaged in misconduct when it comes to students. There is teacher loan forgiveness, which is a shortened uh, it's a 5-year repayment, or excuse me, a 5-year loan forgiveness plan for teachers working in very specific situations like Title I schools and teaching specific subjects that provides partial loan forgiveness. Then there is death discharge. I did see this question in the Q&A. When a borrower passes away, that loan is not passed on to your children or to your family. It does die with you. If your school closed while you were enrolled or shortly after you graduated, there's that option available to you. There's also unpaid refund, false certification, and Perkins loans forgiveness. So there are a few options here. You can find out more at studentaid.gov, and I recommend you look into them if one of them sounds appealing. Now, again, recapping, what can folks do right now? Make sure you know who your student loan servicer is and you have access to your account on their website. You can find that information at studentaid.gov, where you'll see who your servicer is clearly listed, as well as their contact information and their website. Um, Save any communications or documentation you've received from your servicer, whether that is something about your recertification date or what repayment plan you're enrolled in or how much interest has accrued. Save whatever you can. It's just always good to have on hand, especially if you need to advocate for yourself. Make sure that you're printing, downloading, screenshotting, and saving any information that details how many public service loan forgiveness or income-driven repayment credits you have, if those are applicable to you. And for public service loan forgiveness folks, we recommend that you recertify employment before July 1st, 2026, which is when that final rule could go into implementation, um, barring any legal challenges to the rule. So it's just good for you to have as many credits certified at that point. In case there's any changes that come about. And then for Parent Plus folks, if you have not consolidated your Parent Plus loans and would like to enroll them in an income-driven repayment plan, you will need to consolidate those Parent Plus loans and have the consolidation loan issued before July 1st, 2026. You cannot apply on June 30th, 2026 and for a consolidation and still retain that information. The loan has to be issued before that July 1st, 2026 date, and it does take at least 30 to 60 days to process. So keep that in mind. If you have issues or complaints, you can reach out to your representative's offices. They do have assistance that can be requested on their websites. They often have constituent services teams that are dedicated to helping constituents with any issues that they have, so they can act as a middleman between you and the Department of Education and get a little bit more information. So that is one way that you can go about it. You can reach out to your state attorneys general offices to get some more information there. Some states have student loan ombudsmen that you can reach out to and that can also assist you. We know that in California, Connecticut, New York, Minnesota, and several other states do have these resources, so we recommend that you take a look at that. Also, you can go to your servicer website. There are often chat and messaging functions. I know that it's hard to get a hold of folks sometimes on the phone or email, but those options also do exist. And the Department of Education has a help center at studentaid.gov. We've seen folks that have gotten really helpful information at times and others that not so much. So it's worth a try, but if it's not helpful to you, there are other routes that you can pursue to see if you can get some answers to your questions. And be very careful about debt relief scams. We're seeing a lot of people receive phone calls, emails, letters. So a scam typically involves offering a loan consolidation or debt forgiveness in exchange for a fee. Predatory practices could include upfront fees, claiming to be the Department of Education, promises of loan forgiveness. You might see bait and switch that may include immediate loan forgiveness or deadline approaching, or debt forgiveness in exchange for a fee. So be very careful with those. Um, Another thing that is really important to keep in mind is that if you refinance your student loans with a private lender like SoFi or Discover, you will lose access to all federal student loan benefits and programs. You're essentially creating a private student loan by taking that by refinancing. So you will lose access to income-driven repayment plans, public service loan forgiveness, and all of the options that are available to federal student loans. So please keep that in mind. All right, so if you want to continue getting these updates, we share breaking news on our mailing list, so via email. So you can visit SDCC's website at studentdebtcrisis.org. You can sign up for our mailing list there and get more information. We also are very quick to update on our social media as well, so you can follow SDCC at debtcrisis.org. on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. So definitely give us a follow there. And I also want to let folks know that in 2026, we are ramping up our workshops. So we will have an increased amount of workshops. We're going to try and do a couple of different times to make it as accessible as possible for folks and cover a wide variety of different topics as well. So we're going to be focusing on some public service loan forgiveness, some for parents, some for other folks. So definitely keep an eye out for that because we will be hosting those in 2026. And again, as a reminder, we will be emailing out this recording to everyone who has attended today. We'll also include some links for you all that may be helpful. So keep that in mind. Just keep an eye out for an email from Zoom tomorrow that will be in your inbox. All right. And with that, I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. It was a lot of information, but you all have stuck around throughout this year. And so really appreciate your support, really appreciate you being here and getting this information. We wish you happy holidays for you and your family. We'll be back early next year to continue on with this work. But in the meantime, I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Take care, everyone, and have a great night.